Hi everybody, Sue Bowler here. Thank you for tuning in to my baby moon tutorial. This is part one. This is where I'm going to show you how to make the crescent moon frame. Framing is a very, very important part of this design. If we make a good frame, the design will look amazing. If we don't make a very good frame, it can really have an impact on the overall result. So this is, it's important that we get this right. I'm going to give you a confession. I'm really not great at making frames, so potentially you'll see other people working on framework and you'll think, yeah, that's a much better technique. Framing was never my strong point, but basically if I can make this frame, so can you. So just hopefully you'll be able to follow what I'm doing. So what am I needing for this design? So the first thing you're going to need is some aluminium, or in other parts of the world you'll call it aluminum. This is 6mm, which I believe is 1/4 inch, but I will double check that and make any corrections in my blog if I've made an error. It's a good product to work with. You've just got to understand it a little bit, and I'll explain as we go. This generally comes in pretty long lengths. I think this was about a 3-meter length, but my room doesn't allow me to manipulate a 3-meter length round, so I've pre-cut it to a length that I can manage, but I'm going to make the length a little bit more accurate in a moment. So, crescent moon shape. I think the one thing that I've noticed when other people have made crescent moons is that the shape isn't always true to the actual crescent moon. So what we have to understand is that a crescent moon is part of a full moon. So you need a template, and this template works perfectly. So this is a hoop, pretty large hoop. I think it's about a 28-inch hoop. If you need a bigger crescent moon, then obviously you're going to need a bigger template. And so what you can do is you could draw a circle, or just make a bigger hoop frame, or buy a bigger hoop frame. I've actually marked 2 points on here, which for me is going to indicate the shape of the crescent moon. I've probably made it a little bit too big in terms of too much. It probably needs to be slightly shorter than that, but I'd rather make it too big and cut it down afterwards than make it too small and regret it. So the first thing I need to do is check that length. So the length, I'm going to use a piece of string. This is actually Dacron line that I tend to use for making columns and garlands, but I happen to have it handy, so I'm going to just use that. It's a nice strong line. So I'm just going to rest that against the edge of the hoop and just keep following that round. And as long as you don't move your finger that's holding it, you'll get a pretty accurate length, or measurement, sorry. Keep measuring as you go, and there we go. So I'd already pre-cut this, so this is pretty accurate. So I've now finished with that for the moment. I will come back to that because I will use that to help me create the perfect stencil. I'm going to now use my line, and I'm going to measure my aluminium so I can cut it down a little bit further. I think this is longer than I actually need. I'm just going to keep following it. There we go, that's perfect. And I'm going to need something to be able to cut my aluminium. So for this, I've got some bolt cutters. Now you could just have a pipe cutter, which is just like a little smaller tool than this. So whatever you've got available, but you will need something to cut your aluminium. There you go, it's as simple as that. Now be careful of these ends, they're very sharp, so when we do you put them into our designs, we're going to have to take those over. We'll save that bit for later. So this is the piece of rod that I'm going to work with. Now, in a perfect world, you would probably do this on the floor, because by bending it on the floor, you can keep the rod very, very flat. And if you keep it flat, you're not going to get kinks in the actual shape. So you'll probably see me putting a kink in it, because I'm going to have to do it at this height. Now you can buy tools. Anybody who works with aluminium on a regular basis will probably have what they call it's like a de-stressing tool. It's basically like a big wheel where you can put wire through it or rod through it, and by pulling it through, it takes all the tension out. If you look in here, there's a lot of tension, and we have to take that away to give it a bend. There is tools like this. This is a great tool for putting acute angles in. I actually did that earlier, but I'll show you how this works if I can remember. Yeah, that's it. So, but this is good for that. But for this one, because I need such a soft curve for the crescent moon, I'm going to have to bend it manually. You might want to use, this is one of the risers. Let's move that into the camera shot. Off a knot lamp. I'll come back to this in a moment. This might help us a little bit as well, and I'll explain why. So we'll just put that to one side. So we're going to start in the middle. Let me bring back my hoop, because the hoop is quite important for this. So we'll find approximately the middle, and we need something to sort of bend it round and to actually create that nice soft curve. Now, if I'm at a venue where I'm teaching, often I'll find like a secure cylinder. That will work quite well, because I can pull it round and just gently manipulate it, or a nice circular bin or something like that to give you that really nice soft curve. But unfortunately I haven't got any of those here. I'm actually working from my home at the moment because we're still in lockdown, and so I'm going to bend it. So I can't use my fingers. I have seen Luc Bertrand doing some magic rubbing and heating it up, and it will be quite soft then. But all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my knee, and I'm just going to take my knee and just gently pull the aluminium onto my knee, and just moving it just a short little bit each time, just to bend it. It doesn't hurt. It's, if you have bigger, thicker wire, you wouldn't be able to do this. It would be very difficult to actually bend. And I'm just going to put a little curve all the way through from the centre to the end. Now, when you get to this bit, you can't curve that very easily, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So I'm going to go back to the centre, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction. So just going to keep doing that. So as I said, ideally keeping this on the floor would stop us putting any kinks into it, but we'll worry about that if it happens. Okay. So we've just taken this is our first attempt. Pretty good, not so bad. I'm just going to take my hoop, and then I'm going to lay the aluminium on top. So I've got a good start here. That works. When I get to this point, it's coming in too sharp, so I obviously need to pull that out a little bit more. So we'll just remove some of the tension that I've put in there and see if we can't redistribute that. Well, this is pretty good, so I'm just going to bring that down to there. Excellent. So I've got a nice bit of line here. It's following it well. It's coming on here. Perfect to here, and then it starts to move there. So I'm just going to put a little bit more of a curve there. And this is where, you know, I said about this bit of tubing. This is quite straight, so if you pop the aluminium into the tubing, you can just do some really soft bends. It's a little bit like your knee, but you're doing it manually with this, and it just gives it that little bit of leverage. So now, where that was quite straight, we've got a really nice curve there, and we can do the same at this end as well, because you can see it's really quite straight there, but just tiny, tiny, tiny little bends. Okay. So now I can see that I've bent it upwards when I used that pipe, so I've now got to twist it back round again. See if I can't, and I can see it's got quite a straight line there, so I just want to see what I can do to curve that off a little bit. Let's have a look here. So yeah, I'm really happy with the shape, just not so happy about that bend there. I'm just going to bring that back. Yeah, that's pretty good. Again, I've got quite a straight bit here. Let's see if I can't just put a nice little bit of a curve. So just needs a little bit of playing with. To get this right first time is never going to be easy. And obviously you've got to build all this into the pricing of the design. So if you're going to sell this design complete, so I'm just looking to see how it's bent. If you're going to sell it as complete so that the customer doesn't return any of it to you, then obviously you've got to cost in all your materials, including the base, including the aluminium. But what you might want to do is just hire the frame out and reuse it again, and that way you can get your money back quite a few times. Okay, let me just check that again. Oh. Yeah, I've definitely got something slightly odd going on over this side. Feels a bit better. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's good. Okay, so we've got a nice shape. I'm probably going to cut this off a little bit more, so let's move that out of the way. It's pretty flat now. Let me just bring that back up just a fraction. Yeah, so we've got a nice shape crescent moon. I think it's going to have to be a little bit shorter, but we'll decide that when we actually put it into the base. So here, this is what we're going to do. So this base I've got here, many of you will know what this base is. This is something that I've got from IKEA. It's called a knot lamp. They're very inexpensive and they're used very widely in the balloon industry because they're a nice firm base. They're not suitable for outdoor use. They're just great for something like this. So you've got a base like so, and then it comes with a black cover. Now, can you see my cover is actually white because I'm actually going to put white balloons on top, so I don't really want it to be black. To make it white, I've just used a floral spray, and this is just a flat white, and it's a very quick drying spray, so I sprayed it earlier and it was dry within a couple of, probably 15 minutes or so before you'd want to touch it, so you can get a nice cover. Just going to slide that on top, and basically I just keep respraying these every time I use it to make sure that it looks nice and fresh. Screw that on. This is black, that's not an issue because I'm going to cover that, and you'll see how I'm going to do that in part 2. The most important thing now is how do we make this sit on to here. So the most important thing at this stage is to decide the angle. How do we want the crescent moon to look? I mean, crescent moons never look like that. They're always at a nice angle. So I'm thinking probably something like that, which means to me that this end's going to have to be cut down probably to around about there, but we can do that afterwards. So I'm just going to put that down there. I'm just going to rest my scissors at the point where I wanted to add my strength to it. So I'm just going to use a tiny little bit of tape just to mark that point. And I'm just going to double check that I did get that right. So that's where we're going to connect it into our base. Yeah, I think that's correct. I don't want it much different than that. Okay, so now what we want to do is create a fixing point from both sides. So I'm going to take this extra piece of aluminium, just going to cut it in half, so I've got 2 pieces. If you had a longer piece, I'm just trying to see if I've got a longer piece over there. I think that might be better. Let's just cut that one there. If you've got a nice long piece of aluminium, you do really want a couple of nice long pieces. So the first thing you want to do is you want to bend this at a right angle, which is something that I did earlier with this one. In fact, we probably could get away with doing one short and one long. But let's bend this one, and I'm just going to use this contraption. So this has got like an arm here, and then it's got a lever that allows you to curve around that point there. You can use 3 different widths of aluminium or wire in there. Just going to slide that in. So basically it's got to sit underneath this arm, and decide how much of that you want. Rest this on top, and if you see, literally I can just bend that really easily and I can get the angle that I'm looking for, and I just open that up, slide it out, and that was really nicely done. But you can see here that I've got a problem, because when I rest it against my crescent moon, it doesn't sit flat, because obviously there's a curve in the moon. So all I need to do is bend this piece just slightly so it will fit. And now I can attach that, and I could use that for this purpose. So let's take that off again. A spare one might be easier. Okay, so just using this piece of tubing, we can just put a tiny bit of a bend in that end. I'm just going to do little soft bends and just see how that fits on. And there you'll see, if I hold it up, it's not the easiest thing to do, sorry. If I hold that against that, you can see that it sits really flat. So just going to lay that down. Make sure that's nice and flat. I'm just going to take some of my tape. Don't use masses because it gets all stuck up. It's just use small pieces at a time. Just rest that on top, wrap it round, keeping it nice and flat. And I'm just going to use a second piece and wrap that round as well. Now, unfortunately, one piece is not enough. That on its own will just wobble around. So ideally what we need to do is take a second piece on this side and connect it in there. And you know, if you've got any concerns, you could actually even put a third piece as well, just to give it even more strength. So let's have a quick look here. We're going to take that one on the other side. That one needs just a little bend, not much. Ideally it would have been better if this was slightly longer, but this is what I've got here. Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to use that one. So this one again sits really neatly against the edge of the curve. I'm just going to take that into position. And let me just show you so you can see how it's sitting. So you've got that piece here, that piece here. All this is going to get covered in the balloons anyway, but you know, you can see how strong that is. Okay, I'm just going to continue. And then I'm going to tape these two pieces together as well. And just a little bit more. Okay, make sure that's sitting nice and strong. You can see I'm holding it. There's no wobble factor. Let me bring this back into the middle. I'm just going to reconnect my tube or riser. And I'm just going to slide that in. And that all should fit nice and firmly in position. If you are concerned about it tipping or tilting, if you're having that experience, then you can add even another one of these and then connect it into the outside of the tube, but this is feeling quite strong. So now I'm just going to look at it. I'm really happy with the shape here. I think that's a perfect finish here, but I think this curves in too much over here and I think it's too big. So I'm going to be brave and be bold, and I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to take off a small section from the end. Just cut that there, remove that, And now I'm just going to recheck my shape. I think that's a much nicer shape, bearing in mind I'm going to have a balloon positioned in here. And then just to finish this off, just to make sure that everything is secure, I'm just going to take a little bit of tape and I'm just going to wrap it over these sharp cuts that I've put on. So just going to tip that over the edge, wrap that round like so. And I'm going to take this one and do the same here. And the next part of the job is to wrap the frame, which I will do in part 2. So let me just recap what we've done in part 1. So we've made the frame for the crescent moon. We've used a hoop or a circular shape to give us our template. This is going to be a little bit smaller than the one that I made in the photograph that I've posted at the with the baby boy balloon. This one I'm actually going to do a little baby girl version. So this is going to be just a tiny little bit smaller. We've needed to use aluminium. We've used 6mm. I'm thinking that's 1/4 inch. And then we've basically created our shape, taken the tension out of the aluminium, found the shape that we wanted. We've created 2 supports, secured them, slipped them into a riser from a knot lamp, and we've used a knot lamp that I've sprayed the cover white. And you know, you can just keep spraying those as you need to. There's a lot of strength in that. If I move it around, you'll see that it's not going anywhere. So hopefully you'll be able to do that part, and we'll be back soon with part 2 where we're going to add the balloons. Thank you very much.